Hello, guys. Good morning and good afternoon. I say good morning and good afternoon as we've got some friends and guests dialing from the US, Europe, and Africa. If you don't mind, we're going to wait a minute or two so that most of them can join us. And we take it from there. All right, let's crack on. Maybe Rob, you can start to introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Thanks, Stephan. I'm Rob Westcott. I'm in beautiful Denver, Colorado, where I woke up to some snow this morning, which is great to see in late March. But my background is primarily in media and technology. So I started my career at local media companies, everything from alternative news weeklies through Gannett to the Oklahoman in Oklahoma City, which is a large independent newspaper. My roles at the media company was primarily in audience development, but also dabbled a little bit in advertising. I did that for about 18 years, and then I left the media industry to join technology companies focused on the media industry. Started my career in technology with DMPs, a company called CSense, which I focused on both advertising targeting with the DMP, but also in reader personalization of content and a little bit of paywall optimization. I worked closely with the Wall Street Journal to increase their paywall conversion rate using reader information and reader targeting. So I've been doing this for about 10 years now, and my products have ranged from, as I mentioned, DMPs all the way through AI for the legal and healthcare industry. But I'm always firstly passionate about local media. And so I'm excited to share with you today some things that can be done to increase conversions on the paywalls. And Stephan, turn it back to you.
And no wonder why we're so happy to work with you, Rob. And as a little disclaimer, I used to be a client of Rob when I was in New York, so it's pretty fun to be today working together and hosting that webinar with you guys. My name is Stephan. I joined Poool a little bit shy than a year ago. I used to be an executive at the Economist Group in London, and my career has been spread between experiences in traditional advertising, digital advertising, ad networks, marketing tech, data, and also product innovation. But don't worry, we're not here to talk about us as people, but to give you some insights. But before we crack on, just to clarify who we are, Poool, we are a marketing technology, which is meant to help publishers turn their audience into business. And that means that we help publishers turn free readers into paid readers, to convert volatile visitors into frequent visitors, or convert anonymous audiences into identified and logged audiences. But that's about it. Now we're going to share some insight about the digital media review. Let me start then. We might take some questions at the end, so feel free to type some questions, not in the chat bar, but more in the question bar. But now it's we can crack on. And Rob, you're supposed to talk slightly higher. Ubaldo just told us that your mic is not so strong, so Rob, don't hesitate to speak louder. Thanks, Ubaldo, for the heads up.
Thank you.
Okay, let's crack on. So what is the digital media review? That's a joint initiative that's been done by Poool, the company I mentioned to you, but also GESTE. The GESTE is a trade association in France, which has united a lot of different publications. And the idea was that for publishers, it's not always easy to know if they are doing a good job or a bad job at converting free readers into paid readers. And some of our clients told us, well, it would be nice if somehow we can get access to some aggregated data about the market so that we can compare ourselves. So that the idea of allowing publishers to get access to their own numbers as far as conversion is concerned, what percentage is exposed to paid content, what percentage is exposed to payroll, what percentage did visit a landing page, what percentage did convert, but also compare themselves to the market average. So if you're a magazine, that's interesting to know how you're performing, but understand how you're performing versus the average magazine scene, or even compare models versus another. So we see also data from metered versus freemium models. So that's what is the digital media review. It's the aggregation of 75 publications in France, spreading across regional newspapers, national newspapers, magazines, trade publications, and where we get insights from. Interestingly, we've been also supported, and we are thankful, by the Google News Initiative last year, which allowed us to keep going on a more frequent and extensive base. Publishers that are part of the digital media review are not only our clients, some just have to be a member of the GESTE trade association in France. So before getting to the insight, the timeline is we've got data since September 2019. So we published the first insight in October 2019, then February, June, and September. And what we're doing here is just sharing some broad insights that we took from the last year. Just to explain, publishers, when they were a part of the digital media review, get quarterly measures on different KPIs. And KPIs are such as I mentioned, traffic on paid content, what percentage of my audience goes to free articles, what percentage goes to paid articles, some elements about the reader engagement breakdown. How is my audience doing? What is the breakdown between volatiles and fans? How about my conversion funnel from A to Z, all the steps? How do people react to the payroll exposure? Do people bounce? Do they finally visit the landing page? And also some elements about these sequences leading to the subscription. How many articles before someone does finally convert or visit the landing page hosting my subscription offer? So there were a broad set of metrics. And then the publishers have been receiving every quarter a report with all these different KPIs. And that's just an illustration here. So let's say you're the given media brand. You would have been receiving on the first KPI, traffic on paid content, the breakdown versus the regional newspapers average and the freemium model. And you got the same for every metrics I mentioned in the slide before. So that's what we wanted to do with Rob, is just share a couple of insights we got from the 4 edition and walk you through them, and of course, give some recommendation so that you can optimize your conversion from free to paid. So let's go. The first one is, if you compare October 2019 and September 2020, we've seen that the share of traffic on paid articles versus free has been drastically raising. If you think about it, a year ago, about 1 out of 5 articles was behind a paywall. And if you look at today, or at least September, a 5th edition is about to come, by the way, guys, so stay tuned. But as far as September, that moved from more than 1 out of 3 articles. So clearly, we've seen a shift in the publishing landscape in France, where more and more content is behind a paywall, which means publishers still rely on advertising, but there's been a fast forwarding their migrations towards consumer revenue, aka subscription here. If you look, as a matter of fact, it's obvious, but it means it's not just the percentage of content, it's also the percentage of people exposed to paid content. If you look at the readers, 1 out of 4 readers was exposed to a paywall more than a year ago, and a year later, it's more than 1 out of 3. What does it mean? People get used to the paid content model. So I guess it's going to be a positive loop as more and more publishers are putting paid content behind a paywall. More readers are exposed to that dynamic and understand that for great content, they need to pay to get access to it. Now, the question is, oh, so that's easy. I just need to put more content behind a paywall, and of course, my conversion is going to go higher. When in reality, it's not as much. If you look on this chart, you're going to see on the bottom, the share visit to paid article is 0% of my traffic behind a paywall or 100% behind a paywall. On the left side, you got the overall conversion rate of your audience. And you see these are little numbers, right? It's a lot of job to convert folks into being paid subscribers. And you see that up to a certain point, there is pretty much a good correlation between the percentage of share visit to paid articles, the pressure on the paid content, and the conversion rate. From 0 to about 40%, it's pretty linked together. But the reality is that it's pretty spread across after that. And the reason is, of course, more paid content exposure yields normally more conversion, but in reality, the paywall is not the only component. The paid article is not the only component. The recipe is made of different things. To have a brand that is standing strong in the market, do my reader understand my value proposition? Are my offer compelling? Do people understand why they should give a share of wallet, of time, subscribing? So yes, you need to put the pressure on paid content higher, but the reality that doesn't yield automatically conversions. So be careful if suddenly you are like, oh yeah, I should move from advertising to subscription, and you decide to put everything behind a paywall. That might be difficult to convince folks to become subscribers. And yes, of course, it's more obvious, but the more you put pressure on paid content, the more content is behind a paywall, the better your landing page, your subscription page is converting. But the trick is make sure they do visit your landing page. The trick is make sure you find the right balance between tightening the paywall and limiting a way too strong bounce rate, which would mean no visit to your landing page, no discovery of the offer, no subscription. So what could we recommend? And before recommending, I just wanted to throw you some numbers. As you know, we've got numbers from magazine, regional newspapers, trade publication, and other type of publication. If you just have a look to magazine, the average out of all the publication we've been tracking in France is pretty limited. Only 0.06% of subscribers are converting, visitors, are converting into subscribers. And even out of people exposed to paywall, only 0.13% are finally becoming subscribers. And for those who are visiting the landing page, so you will assume they will be in market, well, only 7% are finally converting to the subscription status. So what would we recommend? The first is, of course, to produce more paid content. But we say paid content is content that deserves to be paid for. And you should think about that and have a focus on making sure, of course, nobody does bad content, but the point is really think about what type of content will really make people like, I want to pay to get access to it. This is very something special. Once you get that, you need to think about the nice arbitrage between free and paid. I mean, some publishers have a metered approach, and that's fine because to them, every content has the same potential. They just decide that after 4 articles, you need to subscribe. But for others who are trying to strike a balance between advertising and subscription, they keep a bunch of the content free and a part of the content paid. So based on that, you need to think about the process to decide what content should go on free, what content should go on paid. Some content should be free because the goal is to get a big reach, to get some brand awareness. Some should be just meant for paid because they are hardware piece of content, very exclusive, very special. You need to define your policy. And then you need to enhance the visibility of paid content. So that's what is interesting because we showed you numbers of the percentage of traffic to paid content. So let's say you want to be at 40% of traffic to paid content. You don't need to produce 40% of paid content. You could be just producing 20% of your content as paid content, very special, but make sure it's really visible. And how you make it visible? First, you label it. And there is different ways to label a piece of paid content. We will strongly recommend not to put a little lock sign associated because few people will be really tempted to click on. They will say, no point of going there. Find other little ways of labeling it. And then make sure it's visible everywhere, on your homepage, on your content recommendation zones. Even think about embedding them into the native ads blocks you may have at the bottom of your page. But more importantly, in your newsletters. We don't have numbers to share here, but we know from all our clients that the best performing source for conversion is always the newsletter, way, way, way higher than direct. And of course, put more content paid, shown into the push notification and on social. So Rob, I think I talk about bounce rate, but I think it's your turn to tell me more about that.
Absolutely. Well, Stephan, thank you. And so let's talk a little bit about the learning about where confronting your user with a paywall impacts bounce rate. So as you can see from here, the cluster to the left, early on in the process, when they're first getting confronted with a paywall, the bounce rate is lower. The more they are confronted with that paywall, the higher the bounce rate. So you have an opportunity early in the process, if you get the messaging right, and you put the right information in front of the users. So let me just pull here to the next one. In order to understand the effectiveness of your messaging, the effectiveness of your landing page and your conversions, ultimately, you want to make sure you're leveraging the right analytics and that you're focusing on the impact that your paywall is having on overall audience engagement. So look at what are the number of visits and page views for those exposed to the paywall versus those not exposed to the paywall, the number of times that they're exposed to that paywall. And there are certainly some tactics that work to increase the effectiveness of how you position the paywall in front of your users. So looking at visibility, and the visibility of the paywall can be affected by many different components. It can be affected by the design of the page, the overall priority of the ads, the page speed itself, the length of the article. All these things can affect how many times a user has to scroll or how soon they are confronted with that paywall. And that can affect the number of conversions and click-throughs into your landing page. Obviously, branding differently for different cohorts on your site, whether they are volatiles or they are fans or fanatics. Looking at different messaging for different types of users can increase your conversion and moving people more to the landing page where they can become subscribers. So experiment with the messaging, the branding, but also with the value propositions that you present to these users and to different cohorts. Increasing the visibility of paid content also has an effect on conversion rates. So look at places where you can feature your best content, drive your users in to engage and be confronted by that paywall. So whether that's the homepage or on article recommendations where there are similar content, push them into your highest premium content in order to convert them. Let's move this forward to the next slide. So let's think about branding and messaging. So on average, the visibility of the paywall is about 40 to 70% of the impressions on the site. So they are engaging. They want to read some content. And you want to block that content and make them make a decision. So one of the tips that we have is to make sure that you're very thoughtful about what the teaser text is in that presentation to the user. You want the user to be able to get enough information about the content to perceive its value so that they will click through and they will engage with your landing page. Let me just put that forward one. And in addition to highlighting the content, you want to highlight a premium and compelling offer, tease your value proposition. All of these are very critical to the click-throughs that will bring them into the landing page where they're going to make a buying decision. So putting those things forward as local media companies, as magazines, we're all advertising experts, use that knowledge on creating a compelling value proposition, a compelling call to action to drive people through to the next page, which is the most critical. Traffic to landing page drives conversions. So that's pretty obvious. If somebody has clicked through your subscription offer, they're engaging, they're reading with the landing page, they are more likely to convert. As we go down into what a landing page might look like, it is absolutely critical that we look at the value proposition being front and center. Whether that value proposition is it's news you trust, to be in the know about some specialized information to protect democracy, or if it's to drive local insight that you're not going to get anywhere else on any other provider. The same rules apply to paywalls as they apply to your advertising clients. Your message needs to be targeted to the users who are reading it, make the offers specific, clearly outline the benefits, have a clear call to action, and whenever possible, make that personalized to the user. And don't overwhelm them with 100 different offers. Narrow in on your most compelling relationships that you have with your users and drive them in to make a purchasing decision. Use all of those analytics that we talked about in the beginning as a way to hone your message and to drive conversion rates. Build that front and center into your messaging. And I'm going to move it back over to Stephan, who's going to walk through some other metrics and recommendations. Once we get through this. So in recommendations, you want to enhance your landing page potential. So again, measure the users who are visiting your landing page. Make sure your landing page is capturing your value proposition. Simplify the layout on your landing page and let the user choose between no more than 3 offers. And now I will bring it back to
you're ahead of your slide. That's okay.
I was one slide ahead.
That's okay. So I guess we talk about broad dynamics, but then what's interesting to see is there might be dynamics also in desktop versus mobile. So device matters if we think about the conversion. And what's interesting to see is, most publications have the highest percentage of their audience on mobile and the lowest on desktop. But if you look at the numbers, most of the conversion are still coming from desktop. And the conversion rate, and that's the reason why, it's because even if the traffic is lower, the conversion was 4 times higher on desktop than mobile. So clearly, that's a very strong call to action to say, okay, don't treat the same way desktop and mobile. And I would say focus more on mobile because that's the greatest share of your traffic. And if you look at the mobile, that's where maybe you need to pay attention more than ever on limiting the number of steps between access to paid content, exposure to payroll, visit to the landing page, selecting offer, processing payment, confirmation fields, blah, blah, blah. Think about ways to limit the number of steps. Try to maybe simplify payments, reduce number of steps, embed the steps maybe within the paywall. There are ways to do that. That could be of interest. Or just give up on some of the steps. We've seen some people look in the market as just offering a trial offer on mobile, and later, if they want to extend, the reader has to really create an account and pay. Or you just ask them to do it later. There could be ways of just asking for an email and they take it from there. Or you just think that mobile is a way for you to steer engagement and not convert, and you just look at pushing a subscription to newsletters, creation of account, shares, and other stuff like that. but really pay attention to mobile. Sometimes we're too obsessed on desktop. And then there have been some interesting dynamics between publishers. I told you about magazines earlier, but if you think about those who are clearly doing a great job, these are the trade publications, the professional press. I mean, it's great to see that they have a way stronger conversion rate. First, because, well, it's not the rate, it's the pressure itself. Way more content is behind the paywall. So it used to be 1 out of 3 in the B2C publication. In B2B, is more like 2 out of 3 articles is behind a paywall. And it's working because the conversion rate is still higher. And reason can be different. I think for a while, trade publication understood the need to not be too reliant on advertising dollars. They still care about it, but they diversified, and subscription has been always at the heart of the strategy. Probably event, it's been hard last year, but event has been transforming into a new type of events. Probably there are other diversification trade publication are looking at, but they are a great example about when you really focus on a clear value proposition, maybe a niche audience, you can extract the maximum value out of it, because not only the conversion rate is higher, but the average spend and therefore the lifetime value is way higher than maybe in other type of publications. And one other one is, well, the good news is, good news. It's a crisis, and it's a long-lasting crisis. But there is one thing to take out of the COVID crisis is that news publication and publishers in general get back in the center of the attention. Publishers have been more relevant than ever in these hard times. And we've seen that, at least at the beginning of the COVID crisis and the first lockdown, the whole world has been experimenting, where the conversion has been booming. In percentage, in quantity, and also the steps before deciding to subscribe, 2 times fewer articles before, okay, I take a subscription. But that's nice because here we talk about conversion from free to paid. But what we've seen and heard from our clients this year is that there's been a big bump in subscription in the last 12 months. But the problem with the bump, it's fading a bit because you've got kind of a pretty diminishing retention rate, right? A diminishing stick rate. So what's important, if I may say, is that it's great to convince, great to put the pressure, it's good to convert, but you need to think about making sure you properly onboard your new subscribers. Onboarding means welcoming them, that's fine, but onboarding means forming habit. It means making sure once they activate their subscription, the right away is going to change their media habits. They're going to come to you every day. That would be a great success. It could be one of the 3 things they do in media every day, that success in just 2 weeks. It could be even one of the 3 things they're doing between watching a game, watching a movie, and listening to media. You are clearly winning for the long term. So think about forming habits as soon as someone becomes a subscriber. And of course, the learning is we only know what we don't know. And at the end of the day, it's all about testing, comparing. That's why we hope to share some of the benchmarks to give you an idea. But yeah, it's going to keep evolving. The market is evolving. The consumer reactions keeps evolving. The technology keeps evolving. So I guess it's just going to keep going step by step. That's pretty much because we want to stick to the 30-minute format. We know you guys are doing 30 minutes meeting, 30 minutes webinar, 30 minutes, a lot of things, eating, doing sport. We're happy to take a few questions some may have. We're also happy to take these questions offline. You've got our emails here with Rob and I. So if you heard, Rob is based in Denver and I'm sitting in Paris, as you can hear with my strong French accent. You can also write to us. I see people typing, so let's see if we can take a couple of questions. Oh, that wasn't a question. That was a thank you. Thank you. That's nice. Well, I guess that was pretty clear. Oh, someone else is writing. Let's see how it goes. That's in the chat. Thank you. Well, I guess there is no questions, so I hope it's been clear. Reach out to us. Of course, later we're gonna make a version available of this stream. We've got some summary in words, so stay tuned. We're gonna send you more stuff. All right.
Excellent.
Bye now.
Thank you.